In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to start your coil pot.
We're going to start off with a fresh lump of clay, and I'm going to show you how to properly wedge your clay, set up a base by rolling out a slab, and adding our first coil to get it started. So to begin wedging, what we're going to do is first I'm going to demonstrate the ram's head technique. We're going to take two hands on the sides of the clay. We're going to take the clay and push it down into the table. You can see it kind of start to stick out here a little bit. We're going to pull it back and we're going to do it again. Now while I'm doing this, I'm also pushing in on the sides of the clay here as I roll it out. All right, this is the ram's head technique. All right, you can see it start to come together. My clay is really soft, so I'm trying to get out some of the excess water, push out the air bubbles, and make the clay a little bit more consistent. And the reason why we call it a ram's head technique is because as you do this, it starts to form what looks sort of like the head of a ram. The clay sticks out a bit here, and on the sides it starts to kind of coil over a little bit. So we do this a bunch of times in order to push out the air bubbles, get the clay a little bit more consistent, and I can already feel it starting to be a little bit more workable. The other technique that I wanted to show you is called the cone method. And the cone method is similar, but we're going to do it with one hand mostly, and the other hand is going to guide it or add a little bit of support. So again, what we're going to do is push it down into the table with this part of our hand here. You can see it starts to stick out a little bit, and then we're going to roll it back and do it again. You can see the clay rolling on itself, and we're pushing out the air bubbles. We want to do this a little bit just so we know that the clay is consistent, even, free of air bubbles, and ready to be used.
To begin our slab, we need to toss the clay gently back and forth to stretch it out and begin to get it flat. Now we're going to use some wooden spacers and a rolling pin to roll out our slab the rest of the way. Make sure you keep your rolling pin on the spacers in order to get a nice flat slab. And rotate it every couple of turns in order to keep your slab even and from curling up. Now I'll trace a circle and trim away the excess clay. Make sure to save your scraps to roll out your coils. To begin your first coil, squeeze out your clay to form a sausage shape. Give the ends of the coil a twist and then begin rolling. As you're rolling, spread your hands out in order to thin the clay. If you want to thicken the clay, you can bring your hands closer together. Every so often, give the clay a little twist in order to keep it round and prevent flat spots from forming. You'll also have to wet the clay every so often if you begin to see surface cracks to keep the clay moist and workable. We want our first coil to be thicker than the others, so we're going to make it closer to the size of a thumb so that it can support the weight of the other coils above. Now we're going to measure the fit and cut it at an angle so we get a nice smooth connection. we have to score both our slab and the coil so that they're very rough and they stick together when we add some slip. Now with a wet finger, rub the clay that we just scored in order to create some slip and provide a little glue to stick our coil to our base. And then we'll finish off this coil by blending it the inside to our base. You can kind of take your finger and kind of smush the clay together. You can also use a knife tool on the flat side. And as you're working, try to give the outside of the clay a little support with your other hand. And then we can kind of go back and clean up as we go. Make sure to also go back and clean up the outside just a little bit as well. Support the clay so that you don't mush your work so far. And now we'll prepare our second coil the same way. Start off with a sausage shape, give it a little twist, roll it, stretch the clay out. This coil can be a little bit thinner, closer to this thickness of our pinky. Now when we test fit this one, I can show you that if you place the coil towards the outside of the first, your pot will get wider. And if you put it towards the inside, your pot will actually come in more. But we're going to try to put it straight ahead and trim it again with on an angle. And this time we just need to use water. We don't need to score it first. You can just attach it since the clay is fresh, and then go through again and blend the inside while supporting the outside of the clay with your other hand, and clean up as you go. We'll kind of smooth this out a little bit as we work. Next time when we come to add our next coil in our next session, we're going to have to score and slip our first coils in order to make them strong. And then the rest we can just follow through the same way.